My name is Nick Barron. I am the Director of Partner Enablement over here at Contentstack. And with me is another gentleman by the name of Nick, who is one of our solution architects and also known internally as the Hype Man. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at using Contentstack and Gatsby and how these two things play super nicely together. And we're going to go over things pretty quickly to get things set, and then Nick is going to kind of jump into a bit more of an interactive session with you guys. So agenda for the day, we're going to just do a little bit of housekeeping and some prerequisites. You guys should have gotten an email ahead of time with a few links in them, one to our GitHub, and also actually I think that's it. As well, we will touch very quickly on what is Contentstack, why we here at Contentstack love Gatsby, and then a quick architecture diagram just to show how these things play together. So I will run through those 4 bullet points super quickly, and then we can jump right into the fun stuff. So from the housekeeping perspective, I mean, normally if we were doing this in person, I would be pointing out where the bathrooms and exits are, but I guess you guys should probably know where those are, assuming most of you are like us and at your homes. So what we're going to need you guys to do is go ahead and make sure you have Node.js set up, and then go ahead and install the Gatsby command line interface. That's going to be required for the Gatsby build to fire off and create a static site powered by Contentstack. If you guys have any questions about where these things are, or if you didn't get the link, someone will probably drop that into the chat window, and feel free to ask questions there as well. All righty. So just super quickly, Contentstack, as you guys probably know, is a headless content management system, which allows us to completely separate out our content repository, our content modeling, content types, all of that goodness from the front end or the presentation tier, whether that's going to be mobile, web, AR, VR, chat bots, you know, your Alexas, Google Homes, whatever the case may be. And we're going to connect all of these things together using a variety of APIs, right? So whether it's going to be a GraphQL API, or it's going to be a delivery API, image APIs, all these cool APIs that are going to allow us to build whatever front end we need to meet the specific requirements of the day. And all of that information is then going to kind of funnel over into some sort of display or interactive layer that individuals will be able to interact with a particular brand on. When we're looking at where Contentstack sort of sits in an ecosystem, right? We need to think about a headless approach, and within that headless approach, you know, we're really going to be made stronger by the more tools that are connected together. So you can see sort of over here on the left, you know, we've highlighted Gatsby as a static site generator, but what we also have is a whole variety of different tools within our sort of ecosystem of different platforms that can connect from both a headless and an on-premise kind of perspective. And the big value here is that what we want to make sure is that we're going to let change become our superpower, right? So if we're, instead of worrying about how we're going to kind of architect everything from the beginning, but we use platforms like Contentstack that allow us to change and, you know, kind of plug in and plug out of different tools and technologies along the way, then that's going to allow us, you know, a lot more freedom and capabilities. Was there a question?
Question. Okay. This session was going to be recorded, and it will, so it's available for your on-demand viewing after this.
Fantastic. So just a little bit of us talking about ourselves a little bit more is actually Forrester talking about us instead. So just so you guys are aware, we are looked at as a strong performer in the latest Forrester Wave for agile content management systems. And just a couple of notes on the side there that we did score the highest among all vendors for things like channel support, and we got the highest scores possible in a whole variety of different criteria over on the right-hand side that you can see there. So just so that you know, it's not just us kind of beating our own chests here, but also, you know, the industry and the analysts themselves, you know, regard us quite highly. And one of the things that came out of that report that I just kind of love to harp on a little bit is this quote here of looking for a vendor that will support your tech users with headless first tooling, the mock approach, API first, microservices, true headless, and the right APIs, but not at the expense of the business users or practitioners. So very important when you're looking at these different things, even all the cool technology on that ecosystem slide I showed, is we want to make sure that one, it's super powerful, very flexible from the technology perspective, that we're going to leverage, but also that it's really easy to use from the editorial and marketing team's perspective as well. Because if the tools are hard to use, people just stop using them. So a little bit about why we're talking specifically about Gatsby, why we personally here at Contentstack love Gatsby, because we can get a maximum amount of performance without having to put in a lot of effort. And what I mean by that is deploying out to static sites, just by the nature of what they are, they become extraordinarily performant and very fast. So that's kind of the first thing, right, is that true scalability and performance there. But also when we think about the fact that we're reducing the amount of infrastructure that we need to support these, we don't need a whole variety of different application servers, crunching numbers in real time and doing all that. Even with things like certain personalization tools, we can do personalization at the edge. We can do all of that at the static kind of perspective. So we can keep things light, we can keep it inexpensive, and we can keep our infrastructure flexible. So as we're kind of turning things on and turning things off and swapping out technologies, we're able to switch back and forth for these things. Another thing is the development flexibility, right? Again, being able to manage that ecosystem, right? But not just from sort of the tooling perspective, but also from the perspective of what technologies are we going to build them on and connect them to. That's going to allow us to update things without having to worry about, sort of keeping a bunch of old legacy things in place when there's much better and modern equivalents out there today. We can scale dramatically and massively, right? So our customers that are leveraging things like a static site generator are able to scale, into the millions of requests over, thousands of requests, right? So it's that ability for things that are static, but also dynamic in nature. And what I mean by that is as people are updating things like content or assets or different configurations within Contentstack, that's going to leverage the Gatsby v3 API, which is new. That's going to allow us to do things like incremental building. So even though we're going to have a very sort of static output, there's a level of dynamicism that's going on in the back end to make sure that as changes are happening, that build is happening, but only for the things that need that to be rebuilt or redistributed. That way we're not worried about having to recompile an entire site that might take a while. If we have a news release that needs to go out immediately, we need to make sure that information can get disseminated in as near real time as possible. Also, security is a huge concern for the majority of our customers, right? Especially when we start thinking about deploying things out into clouds and headless. That's one of those top questions that always comes up from folks. So being able to make sure that we not only have that from an application perspective, which Contentstack excels at, we've got SOC 2 certifications and all of the sort of the check boxes for you guys to understand that we are secure. But then when you think about the statically generated web front end being static, the ability to be able to manipulate that or hack that or do any sort of CORS attacks becomes very, very limited by the fact that we've taken a lot of those opportunities away. So keeping that good defense up. Here's a quick architecture diagram of what a static site, very lightweight kind of implementation might look like. You can see over on the left-hand side, we've got Contentstack. We've got one of our partners up there, Uniform, just to sort of illustrate that you can have as many of these things in that SaaS category that support things like building out to a static site. And as content is changing, it's getting deployed out, and in this case, directly to Gatsby Cloud, and that we're fetching those entries from Contentstack. We're linking things together here. And then whatever that client is that's going to be making requests of that auto-scaling cloud infrastructure, it's always going to have nice, easy to get, super fast, static, secure content. here is the integration in a nutshell. It's really straightforward. Create accounts, create a stack, publish your content, configure the plugin, deploy your content using the GraphQL queries, and we're going to walk through all of this. You guys don't need to worry about it. This is more here so that when you guys get access to these slides after the fact, you've got all these cool links just to click through. So I think we've had enough of me presenting. So let's go have a look at the actual build itself. So thank you guys. You made it through my PowerPoint. Hopefully that gave a few more folks some time to join in as well. And I'm going to hand you over to the other half of Nick Squared. So take it away, Nick Jr.
Yeah, hey everyone. So we are going to start the live workshop, and I will be sharing my screen on how to get that all started. So just a hot second. And I think if you haven't already signed up, I think there are links in the chat, or they will provide them to get set up with the stack inside Contentstack. All right. So we have this GitHub repo, and this is the workshop we're going to be building off. We're going to be building this landing page right here. You can see there's different sections and blocks and content all over. And we also have an About Us, a blog page, and yeah, this will be what we're building. So you can get all of this right now from our GitHub repository. Let me actually link this in chat if no one has it yet. Oh, whoops, I can't link it because it's a different, I'm in my VM, but if someone else can link it, that'd be great. And to start off, we're actually just going to clone this repository. So you can actually grab it right here, the link right here, or inside our docs section. We also have the command that you can copy and paste to clone it. So if you take this, oh, wrong terminal, and you paste it in wherever you need it. So I've actually already cloned it into this package before, but if you want to, you can actually just go like this, and we'll just say Gatsby starter. And if I click, oh, let me see this actually. Let's just go like this. I gotta copy this whole command. And if I paste this in, I'll clone this into Gatsby starter. So everyone else should be cloning their repository right now to get it set up. And once you have this all set up, you can actually go inside.
Just hold on a second. I think we might not have had all of the links go out earlier. So we're just dropping those in chat. And if you just want to have a sip of coffee real quick while people get that URL loaded up.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm assuming, does that also mean that we need to share that form as well, folks?
Yeah. Let's, I'll just make these single windows. And this is single window. And this a single window. Oh. All right.
And also, Nick, your screen is tiny. Your resolution is amazing on whatever monitor you're using, but that does not translate great.
Yeah, I'm trying to make this bigger. I think it's just like, what is that there? I'll make this one bigger too. All right, is that a little more legible?
Perfect. Love it.
And let's make this bigger as well. Awesome. So if you can all, once you have the form filled out, you should be getting a link in your email. And once you get that link, you will have to set up your password and just confirm all the checkboxes. And once you accept it, you'll be given access to Contentstack. And then you can actually come back. And once you are in our repo, there's a docs section which has an updated README, and it kind of has the steps on how to get started. So if you already have Node on your system and the CLI installed, you can move down to cloning the repo. And if not, just follow the first 3 steps to getting all set up. And then if you have questions, just shoot them into the chat box and hopefully we can answer them and get you all ready to go. And for today's workshop, a few of the things that we're going to be doing are rearranging layouts of how this page actually looks. We're going to be adding new blog posts and we're going to be altering styles between colors of the page. And then lastly, we'll be adding actually a new component and build out a piece in the page that's not already rendered. So we have a little bit of everything going on, and it'll be a little bit of React coding, but don't worry. We have all the code snippets and I'll be walking you through how to build everything. So hopefully nobody gets confused or lost. We'll give everyone about 5 minutes and then we'll move forward and we'll start building this project.
And if anybody's having any issues again with getting access to things like the Contentstack account via that Google form that we linked, just drop your question in the chat and we will send one of our folks right after the problem for you.
And if you have any questions about getting it set up, feel free to shoot them into the chat. Just kind of monitoring to see if everyone is getting set up easily. All right, we'll get around 2 more minutes of setup time. So if anyone needs longer, feel free to reach out in the chat. But I think that everyone should be getting set up here shortly.
Nick, someone asked if they signed up for an account during the Gatsby Conf but didn't have a chance to open the trial platform.
Yeah, so if they did that and they already tied their email to an account and now it's expired, what they can do, I think, is they can add an alias to their email. So if they have their email, they can say, like, for example, like nick.nguyen+1@contentstack.com. We'll actually sign up a new account under the alias. So that way they can have a same account or a new account, but with the same email. I think Gall is actually typing out an answer as well.
Yep. And then Cecilia had a question as well. So if you have the NPM installed, code downloaded, and you have Contentstack, you're all set. Just to confirm, the answer is yes.
Correct. Yeah. So we'll start off with those three things. And let's see if is there anyone that's not set up yet? Because I think we'll start off here shortly. Give about 30 more seconds and then we'll be on our way. Perfect. All right. Well, I think that we will begin the workshop. Now that everyone has actually cloned a repository, it should be in a folder called Gatsby Starter, unless you named it something differently. So I'm going to have actually everyone navigate inside their folder. So I'm going to go Gatsby Starter 2 because this one I already have. And the first thing you're going to want to do once you have this repository cloned is to get all the dependencies set up. So to do that, all we're going to do is type in npm install. And it should actually just go through and install all the packages that are needed. And this will let us get the whole library up and running. Perfect. So if you don't have any errors, that's fantastic because we don't want that at all. And once we have npm install going, the first thing we're going to do actually is I actually have Visual Studio Code open. Inside this project structure and folder, there is a file, and the file is called it's environment.development. And this is actually going to be our config for the entire project. So this is where all the code is going to pull data from using the API keys from here, and also the environment, the CDN, and the URL. So the only big changes we have to make to actually get content to start filtering through our project is you can see we have the Contentstack API key. So we're going to have to find that. And then also we have the Contentstack delivery token. So we will need to find both of these. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate over to the Contentstack UI. Delano, actually, it's fine. You don't have to run it. It should work without everything as long as there weren't any errors. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our Contentstack UI. So when you set up your account, you should actually see this as the first screen inside Contentstack. And what this little white block right here signifies is a stack. And generally a stack is a digital property that you're hosting. So maybe a website or a mobile app or a digital kiosk or something like that. So what you're going to do is open the stack, and you'll see this dashboard. And this dashboard is actually the front page of a stack, and it kind of tells you what changes have been recently made. So none of this right now is really relevant to what we're going to do, since you haven't made any changes personally. So the first thing I'm going to have everyone do is navigate over to this settings icon. And inside this settings icon, if you go down the list, you can actually see tokens. And these tokens are going to be our API keys to make calls to Contentstack. So if I open tokens, you can see that we have two sections. We have delivery tokens and we have management tokens. The difference between these is delivery tokens is strictly to fetch data, and management tokens are strictly to alter data. You can still fetch data with the management token, but there's limitations. So we stick with the delivery tokens for fetching content. You should already have two tokens developed. So you'll have development and production, but for this example, we're going to be working with the development token. So if you're in the token sections, I just want you to click on development token. And inside development token, you'll see that it has a name. If you wanted to provide it a description, you can, but it's fine if it's blank for now. The scope is actually cool, but it tells you like which project you're actually working in or which environment you're working in. And for this token, we're actually working in the development environment. So we're going to leave that the same. And at the bottom, you'll see API key and your delivery token. So these are your two magic string of numbers and letters that are going to give us access to Contentstack. So, sorry, we have a question right here. They don't see the token menu. Is this something related to access level? Gustavo, if you go to the settings top cog and it highlights, do you not see the token section? Let's see if we can get them through this before we move forward.
And if you don't, just try refreshing the whole interface. Just do an old F5 or hit the big refresh button.
Let's see. we will come back to that. But for now, we're going to actually move forward just a little bit. So if everyone can see their API key, let's just actually click to copy on the right-hand side over here. And now you can see that it says it was copied. If we move back to our code from that env.development file, we're actually going to take this section right here where it says copy from Contentstack interface. We're going to delete this section and we will copy or we'll paste that API key into this section. And then we're also going to do the same thing when we come back for the delivery token. So if I open up the UI again, you can see right below the API key is our delivery token. We're also going to click to copy this. And if we navigate back to our code and we remove this snippet, we're going to paste the delivery token inside the section that says Contentstack delivery token. And we will save the file. You can see that we've already set up the environment for you as development. And the CDN is there and the hosted URL.
And guys, if you don't have the env.development file, just make a copy of .env.sample, or just rename, get rid of sample and put in development.
Yeah, everyone should have the development file, but if you do not have a development file that was in the repository, you can actually just use the environment.sample, as Nick Barron said, rename it to development, and I'll actually leave my screen just visible. So if you need to copy over the CDN, the hosted URL, and the environment, you can do that, and then filter in your own API. You have to change these two to match your own stack. So I'll give everyone about 2 minutes to make sure everyone has their keys set up. They have a development file, and we'll have all this set up before we start moving forward with actually rendering out our page. So feel free to ask questions for the next 2 minutes if you are confused or just want to talk.
And I just put in the CDN and hosted URLs that you guys should be putting into your environment files as well in the chat. So if for whatever reason you don't have that Gatsby CDN, then there it is. So make sure you copy that. And I guess just one thing to point out, since we kind of covered it really quickly, the really neat thing about the way that the environments are tied directly to the API keys means that, as you can probably imagine, right? So now anything that's in the development environment will only be accessible by this application that Nick is setting up. But if you had, let's say, a production environment, the code itself is only going to have access to those keys. So while we're logically separating the environments in the Contentstack headless world, we're going to be able to physically separate those by the deployment of those keys to different applications as well.
Looks like Gustavo's still having some issues with the token menu. He logged back out, logged back in, and did a hard refresh, and still nothing.
Okay. Gustavo, can you see the users tab on your UI? And inside that user tab is your role in admin. I don't think it's due to the region. I don't know why it wouldn't be showing the token.
I'm resetting his organization in the background. So give it 30 seconds and I'll message him through Zoom.
Perfect. Gustavo, Gall will be helping you out getting that situated. Awesome. Well, let's see. You don't have to add the environment file to get ignore. I mean, you're just going to keep this locally anyway, so it's fine. It's because we won't be pushing this back or making
typically, to answer your question though, yeah, you would, just because it has the, it's got your your secret access code basically, right? So typically you would want that ignored in any sort of, if you were to clone this repo for your own purposes, right, then it would be behoove of you to keep that local and not sort of give the keys to the castle away.
Perfect. Well, now that everyone has their environment files set up, we are going to save that to make sure the file changes take place. And if you navigate back to your terminal and you type in npm run develop, it should start up your server, and once it goes through success, it'll start pulling all the data from your stack that you put those API keys to. And if we go back and you navigate over to localhost 8000 with port 8000, you should see that your content is up and running, and this is all being delivered from Contentstack and your personal stack that you have cloned and set up account for.
Oh, and Gustavo is all set now, by the way, Nick. And
Awesome.
so guys, what's happening here, kind of in the background, right? So there's a lot of magic that just happened between, one command getting typed in and all of a sudden a website appearing, right? So there's this combination of the templates, right? The presentation layer that was already built into that repository that you guys pulled down, but then all of the data, all of the content, the images, etc., that's all getting pulled right out of Contentstack with a bunch of GraphQL queries that's then persisting, on the file system now. So on Nick's machine, for instance, or if you were to deploy this to, some cloud hosting, some Vercel, Gatsby Cloud, whatever, that's now saved versions of all of this information. So this is also a kind of a technique that we use to get things behind firewalls. So whether it's a countrywide firewall or needs to be something like an intranet internally that we can in effect lock down, we can do that as well, because now what we've done is we've in effect completely disconnected this from the back end itself, which is pretty neat if you ask me. I'm a little biased, but that's all right.
Awesome. And so now that we have this up and running, I'm actually going to do a little overview of like what's happening and what is Contentstack, what are all these tabs and buttons and everything. So as you see across the navigation, we have content, we have assets, we have a queue, releases, and then we have a bunch of other settings inside here. We're only going to cover a few of them that are relevant to today, but we'll start with assets. So Contentstack has its own dynamic asset manager or digital asset manager. And we basically support pretty much every single file type, from PDFs, all types of images, audio, things like that. And we do asset organization kind of like a typical file system structure. So you have hierarchies, you have folders, and then you kind of nest data inside them. I mean, a DAM isn't super complicated. A DAM is a DAM. So this is what we have right here. And then the next thing I'm going to cover is environments. So this tab over here, environments, as we've already seen, as we've gone through the code, there's been a development and a production environment. And I think Nick Barron touched on this a little bit earlier, but Contentstack has a many environment approach. So you can have production server, you can have a QA server, you can have the development, you can have like pre-live servers or certain servers for certain users, things like that. So you can create as many environments as you want. So this is a really cool thing, as you can kind of have a separation of content and fetch content from different places on different things that are meant to go live at different times. So really cool concept. It can kind of get pretty intricate if you want it to, but from a high level, it just lets you push content to different places. The next piece we'll be going over is languages. So we support over 200 languages. It's an easy way to localize content across different areas. So as you can see, if I click on language, we have a whole range of languages you can choose from. And this just lets you generate content in different languages, in the sense that we're actually not translating the language for you, but it lets you create a homepage. And then inside that homepage, you can have different variations of languages that fetch based on where the user's coming from. So very strong, can get really detailed oriented, but from a high level, it just lets you have content in many different languages. We've gone over tokens, and then the last thing we're going to be going over is the content. So this is where we're going to be working pretty much the entire time. This is where all the fun stuff's at. So we have this sense of content types, and then we have entries. And what content types are basically the building blocks to create pages, and then the entries are the actual data for those pages. So the first thing we're going to actually navigate into is this page content type. And what this is basically like your home page and the layout for it, but not the data. So if we navigate the page, you can see that we have 4 different entries. We have the contact us page, the blog page, about us, and our home page. And so for this workshop, we're actually going to be altering and changing some of the stuff on the home page. And so if I navigate to home page, we're going to take a little break here to answer some questions, but we're going to be inside working in this home page. And if you are unable to navigate here, let's see if we can help you get here. So let's see. Paul, did you copy in the, I'm getting failed extract queries from components. The localhost just shows failed. Did you type in npm install to get all the required packages and then put in the correct API keys?
Yes.
Yes to both. Okay. Let's see what we can do. And the localhost just shows failed to compile. Extract queries from components. Perfect. And Delano, are you still getting an API key is not valid error?
And Nick, can you just pull up your config file again? Because I think some of these issues might actually be related to the same thing. So we need to make sure that the CDN, if you look at the CDN URL, it starts with HTTPS, has Gatsby-CDN, and ends in v3. So those are common things that I mess up all the time when I'm setting these things up as well. We need to make sure that the environment says development and that we have the API keys and tokens just as Nick has them formatted in here.
Yeah, so I'll leave this config up for about 2 to 5 minutes, and we'll see if everyone can get their content delivered. So make sure it matches everything exactly how this looks, and make sure your file is .env.development, and we'll go from there.
No, and that is a good other point. There is a dot that precedes env. A lot of times, especially if you guys are working on Windows, it doesn't like that. So just double check that and make sure that the file follows this exact format, because that's all that should be used to check to see if that API key is valid.
Another thing too is inside your tokens, you have a production and development token. Make sure you're using the development token. And so inside development token, you can see that it's meant for the development environment, which is specified inside the config. So just double check that the API key and your delivery token are coming from the development token and not production.
All right, so we have one resolution, and it was the magical dot before env.
Yes.
So I think Mika is also seeing that same issue. Can you just, I know these things are just double checky, but it's very important.
We'll give it about another minute or so. Paul, were you able to get the resolution? Okay. You let us know what we can do to help, and we'll let's see. I'm trying to see if I have anything. I'm using development token in the environment.development file. Yeah, so another thing I want everyone to check, let's just see, because it should come published, but I want everyone to navigate inside the page content type. And I want you to look inside and see if on this publish status, if you see the development with a green mark next to it, I want to make sure that that is all there. So Delano, are you able to see inside this content type? So if you navigate to content, inside Contentstack and down to page, and inside page, you should see the publish status of the content. And I just wanted to make sure that development has a green mark next to it. Interesting. And you're typing in npm run develop and it's giving you all sorts of errors, or just the not able to fetch the content. So if we go,
Okay, so I mean, it looks like there's an error in the Gatsby starter cache. And you did do an npm install, right, from within the directory to get all the dependencies in there.
what you could actually try doing is type in npm run clean, and this should clean out the entire project and the cache, so you can see it kind of cleared things out. So if you run npm run clean, it should do Gatsby clean for you, and then npm run develop will rebuild the project, and hopefully that'll clean out any caching issues. Perfect. So I'll give everyone about another minute or so to try getting this all set up. And I guess we will be moving on to the home page. So if you can make your way and navigate over to the home page, we will just move forward and we'll just start editing with some content. And then, for anyone that's stuck, you can actually rewatch this recording and follow along to these steps after the call. So what we're actually going to be doing is on our page, we're going to change the color and our little banner header or a banner title. So how we're going to be doing that is, instead of altering it within the code base, we're going to be doing it within Contentstack. So you can see these little sections right here called components. These are called modular blocks, and modular blocks are a really cool thing that Contentstack does that allows you to build flexible components within a page. And by that, I mean, it allows you to really alter and change not just the text and content and the images inside a page, but also the layout and the structure of a page. And to demonstrate that, I need everyone to actually open up the hero banner. And you can see this content right here. It has the image.svg, which is the image that is right here on the right-hand side. We have the title, which matches the title on the page, and the color of the schema. So what we're going to do is take this background color, and we're actually going to pick another color to use. So I'm just going to go with, let's just do green. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to change the banner title to say an awesome demo. Whoops. For all my friends. And so now that I've changed some content inside here, I'm actually going to go down to this button called publish at the bottom, the green one, or teal. And when I click publish, I'm going to select development because I only want it to go to the development environment. It doesn't hurt to click production, but it doesn't also help us either. It's just there. We select the language that we want this to go to. And so right now we're just going to keep it on the English language, and we're going to publish it now. So when I click publish, you can see that the requested action has been performed. If I refresh the status over here, you can say that, or see that it went published a few seconds ago. And if I go back to my page, which is right here, you can see that it's still purple. What we're going to have to do is rebuild our server. So if I close down the server and rerun npm develop to fetch the new content, and I go back to my page and let that all fire up, I hit refresh. You can see this is a crazy green,
That's
but
beautiful.
and then an awesome demo for all my friends. So you can see how easy it was to really change the content. And all you really had to do was rebuild the server to fetch the new content. There are ways to do this instantaneously with incremental builds and using other services. But for now, we're just going to be doing it manually. And we'll just give everyone a minute or two to see if they can get these changes up and running.
And just while folks are doing that, in terms of kind of what it takes to get some of that incremental build magic set up, for things like Gatsby Cloud, it's as simple as copying a webhook URL from Gatsby Cloud into the Contentstack webhook section, and then just saying whenever content is created, added, updated, deleted, destroyed, etc., fire this webhook and let the Gatsby Cloud system know, and then it'll re-pull that one content element out from the query, and then it'll incrementally just build that anything that it's referenced in. So in terms of getting something stood up from, kind of going from 0 to 60 in terms of incremental building is really easy as well. At the Gatsby conference a few weeks ago, they announced the public release of version 3 of the Gatsby API, which has incremental build API access built directly into it. So even if you guys are, hosting on a customized solution or something, that's still all available, and then you can just point your Contentstack webhooks directly to whatever that custom application is. So it's pretty neat. You don't have to do what Nick just did and rebuild your environment every time there's change, which of course is going to create a cascading rebuild. So it's just updating what needs updating when it needs updating.
Perfect. All right. So hopefully most of you or some of you have gone through the content alteration. It was pretty easy to do, but now we're actually going to be altering not just the content, we're going to be altering the structure of the page. So on our page, you can see we have the banner, we have this content block here, we have another content block below it. But like, what if we really wanted to rearrange how this page looked and, maybe choose a number 1 tech consultation or above
Consultancy.
Yeah, thank you. Above this banner block, and then have this learn about our community outreach to the top, and then, just rearrange how these blocks look. So to do that, you can actually collapse your hero banner. And let's say we wanted the learn about our community outreach. Let's just take this and move it below our hero banner. Let's move we are here to help you with what's next below this. Let's just go to the bottom. And so now we have a new layout from our current page structure. And that is one of the powers of Contentstack, is we have the power to manipulate more than just the content. So if we click on publish, and we're going to send this off to development again, we're going to keep all the same settings. We'll publish this content to make it go live. If I refresh the publish status over here on the right-hand side, you can see that it was published a few seconds ago. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to actually rebuild our server. And if I go back into where it was being delivered, and we'll refresh and let this thing finish building. Should be going here shortly. Oh, whoops. Let's go with this. You can now see that we've changed the complete layout of the page. So we actually have learn about our community outreach right underneath the banner. And then we also have that original component that was at the top now at the bottom of our page. So this allows you to, like I said, rebuild this template in a different layout, and not only just change the content or the colors of the page.
And so if you guys think about this, right, what we're really doing, can you zoom in a little bit, Nick? Oh, look at that. Oh, you're on it as I'm asking. Perfect. Thank you very much. What we're enabling you guys to do as developers and technologists, right, is in effect create these little components, these little modular block elements that then map directly to, in this case, a React component. So as a developer, I create the component and I create the modular block, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But now the editorial team or the marketing team can use that whenever and wherever they want, right? So we're doing two things. We're giving the marketer and the editor extraordinarily flexible control over what they're able to do, and using this same, because you can think about this, right? This is basically a blank template that just has a big section in the middle, a big white box that you can just put whatever you want into, and that builds up a landing page, a home page, etc. So you're giving them the freedom to create what they want, but we're still asserting some level of control as developers to say you can do this, and if you change this color or if you change left to right, that's going to have some change on the front end. We're creating that very happy marriage between giving us enough control and certainty that they're not going to break everything, but also that they're not going to come to us and say, oh, I want to change the background color of something, right? So we can enable them to make whatever changes we want them to be able to make. Sorry, Nick, had to geek out for a second.
No, thank you. And Cecilia, what we kind of did before, I guess I'll kind of re-demonstrate about what we kind of did to manipulate the page is these are your different sections. And if you expand them, they have actually content inside them. But on the left-hand side, you can actually grab these components and you can move them around and rearrange them. And that's kind of what I did before. So actually, if I move my hero banner down to the middle section of the page and I publish this back to development and I reset the server, whoops, and I let this build, you'll now see that like these components have been rearranged and now your page has a completely different structure. If I go back here and look at the page now, you can see that the hero banner isn't even on the top anymore. It's actually now moved down to the middle of our page. So this is really cool in the sense that you can tie this in with other cool things such as like A/B testing. If you wanted to design multiple variations of how your page looks, instead of having to code out and build different pages, you could actually just do it all within Contentstack and render out these components in any layout you want. So I think we'll move on to one of the last pieces, and that's going to be building out a custom section. So right now, we're not only going to be altering pieces in Contentstack, we're actually going to be coding out a new React component. Just so that we can see how this content is delivered and how it's fetched into a component, not just the Contentstack side of things. And so right now we have, you should all have a custom section block that you can add into your layout. But before we do that, we actually are going to need everyone to, sorry, just Cecilia, can you do like a lot of different editing and several components and then publish, or do you? Yeah, so you can publish these. So you can actually schedule them to go at a later date if you want to. And another
We also
way
have something that we call releases, where you can basically queue up a bunch of changes that you all want to go live. So you don't have to just, and you can make as many changes to a single page as you want as well, so that all of those can cascade out at one point. If you think about something like a big sale for an e-commerce site, right? You're going to want to have 20 different products on your homepage, all changing and doing all sorts of stuff at multiple times during the day. So you can kind of queue those things up and then just let the automation magic happen for you.
Yeah, so Cecilia, just on the right-hand side, like you said, we have these release concepts and you can actually create a new release. And if I click example release here and just click add, you can add all this content to a release. And then you can see that inside here, I've added like pretty much everything inside of that page. And you can deploy this all together whenever you want. So it lets you do that.
And if you notice, when Nick actually did that, there was a bunch of images and content that were referenced by that page that weren't published. The system's smart enough to kind of go down a couple of different layers to find all the things that are that need to be published, and then publish all those out at the same time. So you're not going to have 404s and that kind of stuff as well. And it looks like one of the problems that somebody had, by the way, was some local environment variables that were overwriting the .env .development. So just something else to kind of consider.
Yeah. And Eduardo, yeah, we support pretty much any front end, anything that can make an API call, we support. So it doesn't matter what language you're using or what framework you're using. That's the beauty of headless, is since it's all API driven, there's no tie into any language that it could be used for. So yes, we can support Angular.
And I will drop a link into the general chat as well with it's a link to a single page e-commerce app that is built using Angular. So it's not just that we support it, but we also have a sample app to get you up and running quick time.
All right. So in order to complete this last section, you may want to have the documentation opened up because we are going to be copying and creating some pieces here. And part one is actually, we're going to navigate over to the content section. So we're going to be at the highest level of the content types. And the pages that we were working in, instead of clicking and actually navigating inside this page, we're going to go over to the right-hand side and click the three little dots. And we will click edit content type. So if we click on that, this is our schema builder. So, every project starts off with a blank schema, and you kind of design the pages as you see them. So this is already pre-designed for you. It's what the fields are that we've been working in. And here's all those blocks, like here was the hero banner and all the fields that are associated with it. But for this next section, we're actually going to go all the way to the right-hand side, all the way to our custom section. So this is going to be a brand new section that we're creating that's not yet rendered on our front end. And we're going to do two things. We are going to add a multi-line text box, and it doesn't matter where you drag it into as long as it's inside this block somewhere. And we're going to name this description. And then we are also going to add a file type. So after you scroll down a little bit on the left-hand side, you'll see file. And we are going to rename this to image, and make sure that you spell description and image right, because these are going to be being pulled by the GraphQL schema by this unique ID. So if it's spelled incorrectly, it won't be able to fetch it correctly. So after we've added these two new components, or these two new fields into this component, I should say, it should look like we have a title, another title, a description, an image, and then a CTA, and then the image alignment. So once you have these kind of put in and you have the fields renamed, you can actually click save and close, and this will save and update our schema. We'll go back into page. We'll navigate back into our home page, and you should create a custom section block. Mine was already there because I accidentally saved it. And this will actually create the new fields for us to start adding. So we can start entering a little bit of data into here. So I'll say, this is our big title, and this is our smaller title. And then description will be a custom section that I built with Contentstack. And then from image, let's just choose from uploads. So you're going to have 6 folders here. It honestly doesn't really matter what you choose. So we're going to go with the home page, and we're just going to choose one of those images that we've already used. And for call to action, we will say, let's go with just say a button. And I'm going to make this go to contentstack.com. And I want my image to be placed on the right-hand side. And I'm actually going to publish this now. So after you created some content inside this custom section, we are going to publish this to development. The only thing is, on our code side, we haven't really built out anything to render this custom section. So even if we fetch this data, it's not going to be rendered correctly because we haven't really built out the component to show it. So that's where I was hoping that everyone would have this documentation open. and we are going to add this component to our React code. So that I need everyone to actually navigate inside Visual Studio Code. And you're going to see a bunch of files. There's just like a lot going on here. So if we actually navigate over to, I think it is, sorry, just a second. Where is it? It's index.js. I think this is, yeah, perfect. Inside the source folder of your project, you'll see a pages folder. And inside the pages folder, you'll see the index.js. So this is kind of like the master list. This is where we are fetching the content for these pages using GraphQL. And if you scroll to the bottom of the code, you can see that we have this query. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot going on here, but don't be scared because the documentation will help us. So you can see it says scroll down to line 159 and add the following and update the file. So what this is doing is actually making a call to our custom section component. And it's getting our title, the other title, the description, the image, alignment, and the call to action. And I think that's all we really need. So if we take this little section right here, we're going to copy and paste this. So copy. And I'm going to scroll down to line 159.
Nick, where did you find that sweet documentation, buddy?
Oh, yeah. The sweet documentation is actually inside our repository in the doc section. And I will actually link it right here. Oh, Nick Barron, do you want to link it for her?
Yep.
So inside the repository, Cecilia, there is a docs folder. And when you open up the docs folder, actually, if you scroll to the bottom, this is kind of where the code section is at. So I'll give everyone a few seconds or minutes to kind of get caught up, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Nick.
And we did have a question come in as well about whether the image alignment applies to the front end or just in Contentstack. It actually doesn't apply to anything by default. So what it is that is just a multiple choice or a radio option that we put in against that content type, which then we get to do something with, right? So you can see here, actually, in the GraphQL that's going to come down, there's going to be a value for image alignment. So it's going to be up to the code to say, what do I do with that? Now, in this case, it's probably going to specify whether something floats left or right. So it's nice, easy, take that value and put it into a class. But that could also be some sort of conditional logic that's going to fire off as well. Because when we think about the fact that we have all of this great, well-structured and meaningful content, well, in this case, we're talking specifically about the web and using Gatsby as a front end. That same homepage content structure could be used for, let's say, a mobile app to feed the content in for that as well. So maybe on that, it's not just going to be a class switching to left or right, because it's going to be some sort of list view controller, depending on how you're building out a mobile app, but you can use that to conditionally place that image where you need it to be.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nick. Yeah, so that doesn't tie into anything, but you get the power to, plug it into components on the front end, like a CSS class of some sort, and apply that class to an element. Based on whatever you're passing from Contentstack. Let's see, Cecilia, I hope you were able to find the documentation and get the custom code snippet. Perfect. So like I said, we're going to take this section called custom section. You're going to copy this. You could type it manually if you want, but it's easier to just copy it. And if you go down to 159, this will actually be after one of the components. So we should actually add it in. I don't know why it's actually a little different. Let's see. You could actually add it right here. So it should actually be 158. And this custom, oh wait, no, it is 159, my bad. There it is. And so once you save this, you now have kind of what it's doing is you've put in the query to fetch that new component that we've just designed. And that's just the first step. And the next step after doing that is we're actually going to create this component. So you're going to see this giant chunk of code. And basically what it's doing is it's rendering out the newest custom section. So this is the component called custom section. And you can see it's rendering the title, both title, description, call to action, the links, the images, things like that. So instead of actually typing this out, just for the sake of time, we're going to copy this. And we're going to go back into our folder for the code. You'll see the source. And now we're going to make a new component. So in the components folder, you can see that we already have a bunch of components built out for the other pieces that are already on this website. All I'm going to do is create a new file and name this custom section.js. Oh, I accidentally typed it with a backslash on accident. Rename
Spelling counts.
section.js. And I'm just going to paste all this code into it. And you can see that we're just exporting out this custom section. For those of you not familiar with React, basically we're just allowing this piece to be used in other places. So once you have that in there, I'm just going to click save. And now we have the custom section component built out. And then if you scroll down a little more, there's only one more section of code that we really need to do. And that is put the custom section into the page. So we've fetched the data. We have now implemented the component that will be rendered. And now we have to render the component. So it says to navigate over to our render components.js file. And we're going to actually import the component and then render the component. So to do that, we'll just copy this top section. We'll go over to our code folder. And inside that same components folder, we'll move down to render components.js. And you can see at the top, we've actually imported all the other pieces that are used on this page. Here's the hero, here's our blog section, cards, team section, things like that. So I'm actually just going to push enter and we'll just paste in the custom section. So we have that going for us. And now all we really have to do is add in the component. So on step 3, it says on line 30, insert the following code. So we'll just copy this right here. We'll go back to our code base, and actually for just, easy on the eyes, we have a section that says insert code here. So I'm actually going to just remove this and paste in our custom section. And basically all this is doing is when you get your data from Contentstack, it's iterating through all the components that you're passing through and rendering them out based on what they are. So if it's a hero banner, it renders out the hero component. If it's a section, it does the section component. And for our use case, if it's a custom section, render out the custom section that we just built. So I'm going to save this component. And then I think I've already published this, but just to be sure, I'm going to publish this custom section again to make sure it's live to fetch. Perfect. And the last thing we need to do is rebuild our server. And once this is rebuilt, we should be good to go.
And hey, Nick, I know you're in the middle of a flow. We had a question come through from Paul. He's currently a student at Front-End Developer Program, awesome, and looking to utilize a headless CMS for his personal page. He's previously worked with Contentful and Neltify CMS, and they both have free account levels for students and individuals. Do we have an account level for this type of user? I can actually answer that question. We do have a free trial. Is that right, Nick?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Awesome. So, Paul, we can definitely share a free trial. Actually, in tomorrow's follow-up email where you'll get the on-demand recording, there is a link to a free trial that we would definitely recommend you check out.
Awesome. Well, now that we've rebuilt this project, we have added the new React component. We've added the new Contentstack component. if I go back to our page, I have a failed to compile. Oh, no, I don't. So you can see at the bottom of our page, here is our custom section. This is our big title. This is our small title and a custom section that I built with Contentstack. So you can see it's really just a simple 3-step process to really get new content out there. It's 1, creating the content in Contentstack. 2, delivering the content and the data that's associated with it. And then 3, rendering it out into your front end. It's really seamless. It's really easy. And I hope that kind of demonstrates how Contentstack and front end code kind of tie into each other, and how data is fetched and how it's presented. Hopefully some of you were able to get this going all the way through. And if there are any questions, I guess I'll leave it open for a couple minutes to make sure everyone's caught up for those who are following along. And then for those who are building it later, you could just rewatch this and hopefully get it working.
Excellent work, Nick. And I mean, I guess just to kind of summarize, really what we did is when we think about it from the code perspective, we put together a little bit of code. Obviously, we were copying and pasting in this case, but since that got put in as a component, it is now intrinsically reusable anywhere across the project. And when we're putting that into Contentstack as a modular block, we can actually make those modular blocks what we call global. So in this case, it was specific just to that homepage content type, but we can make that available to as many content types as we would like, so we don't have to continually reconfigure that, right? So once it's in Contentstack once, we can just say when and where a marketer or editor can use it. So maybe we want them to have access to that on landing pages, but not the homepage. We specify sort of its scope of where we want it in the site. And then as long as we have the front end component in there, the modular blocks capability is going to look through that and say, hey, that's where this is. And it's just going to render it out. So from a code management and an information architecture perspective, once they're set once, it's very much set and forget. And we do have a question about rich text data. So how we render out rich text content is that we do have a couple of different iterations of a RTE, or a rich text editor, within the platform. And there's always this kind of idea when we're thinking about things like content management systems that they're web content management systems, and that's not necessarily the case. So when we think about the example I gave about how we might want to render one of these modular components in something like a mobile app, or like some of our customers who will run their display boards at their conventions, when we have in-person conventions again, some of the data is not web-centric. So while we do provide the support certainly for rendering that rich text data within our RTEs, it's also important to think about when and where that information is going to be used. So maybe we need to make it a little more or a little less structured between, depending on what the different end results are going to be.
All right.
How do we handle personalization? Yes, so we have integrations with some of the best personalization engines on the planet, is the short answer. And if you remember, when we were looking at our architecture diagram that I had up, there was actually another tool on there called Uniform. So Uniform is a personalization engine, and what they do is they actually do personalization at scale using things like Gatsby as well. So typically where you need to have some sort of conditional logic baked into the application to say, oh, should I show you, version A or version B? Theirs is actually doing a similar thing that we just did here, where it's actually pre-compiling a bunch of that. And then based on some JavaScript, it's going to say which version of those pages should be called dynamically. So in that case, we're actually getting the best of both worlds of dynamic personalization at scale and the static site capabilities as well. So I hope that answered that question. Next up, can we share our custom components between stacks? You sure can. So we have the ability to import and export different elements of the platform. We also have a full-featured command line interface for automating these things. So when that becomes, a neat thing is, I've got a customer who runs tons and tons of events. And what they want to do is, in effect, click one button that calls the CLI that then goes and creates a bunch of these different kind of pre-populated stacks for them, so that can go in and, sort of have the different content types that they would want, some custom extensions that they would want, and some custom front-end components that they would want as well.
Perfect. And Cecilia, were you able to alter the content type? Initially, there wasn't a image or description field, and we added those in. So if you need me to go back over how to do that, I can do that for you.
There was also a question about validation. So we do have the ability to have validation at the field level, certainly. So that can be anything from simple, it's got to be a number greater than 5, all the way up to regular expression matching. So that's full kind of gamut of whatever you need to validate, we can do as well. We also have what are called conditional fields. So based on, as a user is filling out certain fields, based on the values of those, or whether or not they're populated or filled out, is going to determine which fields show up below that. So easy example being something like, if I check a particular checkbox, then 3 fields disappear underneath or appear underneath.
Perfect. And Cecilia, so if you navigate back to the content tab, generally we would hop into the page section. But for this, we're going to go over to the right-hand side, and you should get like a dark highlight bubble. If you click on this, it'll say edit content type. And so if we go into edit content type, this is kind of like the overall layout for a page and like the page builder. But what you're going to do is go down to the page component section, and you'll see the arrow on the right hand side. If you click next and keep going, you can keep clicking it. It'll take you all the way to the custom section, and yours shouldn't have description or image. Here, I'll just re-add them for you just so you can see me doing it. It should just look like title and then call to action, image alignment. So what you're going to do is click and drag this multi-line text, and we're going to drag it into here. And then we're going to rename this as description. And also on the left-hand side, we're going to take this file. We're going to click and drag the file into here, and we're going to name this image. And make sure that description and image are spelled correctly, as the unique ID needs to be spelled correctly in order to fetch the data. And then you're just going to save and close. And if you go back into your page and then your home page or your home entry, your custom section should now have those fields. And then once you fill them in and then you publish it, I don't think that error will be there anymore because it can find the data it's looking for. So hopefully that helps out. You just let us know. We'll give everyone like maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll just open it up to questions.
By the way, Nick, I think you should get a job as a marketer, labeling your button, and this is my big title, and this is my slightly less big title, or whatever it was. Primo marketing content.
Oh man, I'm so bad with like filler data. I just put in like, usually if it wasn't like a demo, I'd just be like.
As a fellow marketer, I fully agree and second that motion.
Right? I think we
the marketing team.
Yep. You can put me on the marketing team for toddlers.
Looks like we got a question as well about, can we link the image field to pull images from a CDN or other repository? You sure can. So we have a few out-of-the-box custom field extensions that do that already to tie into things like other DAMs, so Binder, Cloudinary, and of course I'm going to forget the other ones.
Like S3 buckets, brand folder.
There you go. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of those as well, and then those can have, you know, their own CDN references as well that we can save in the content as well. So there's plenty of places and plenty of ways you can do that. And if you have a requirement to use one that we don't have out of the box support for already, it's very easy to take the existing code and instead of saying pointing it to server A, point it to whatever server you need to point it to. We also have, you know, example interfaces that you can use for selecting those images and doing things like searching through them as well.
Awesome. Cecilia has made it through the entire workshop and she got it up and running. That's awesome. I'm glad it worked out. Cool. Well, you know, that's pretty much what we have going for the day on this workshop. I hope it kind of, you know, helped everyone grasp the concept of how Contentstack really works and how easy it is to really deliver and manipulate websites and content. But if there's anyone with pending questions, I guess the panel's open for open discussion, things like that. Yeah, you can actually do multiple images at the same time. You don't have to do them individually. I think you can do up to 10 images at a time when you upload them. And then if you use our content management API, you can pretty much do as many as you'd like to. You could just iterate through and make the respective upload API calls and yeah, you know, take full advantage of however you want to upload those images or other assets.
Yeah, you guys are, yeah, thank you guys for all your thanks, specifically Nick, and I guess that makes, I didn't realize we were Nick cubed up until this moment, but yeah, so certainly happy, you know, if you guys have any other follow-up questions, you know, feel free to reach out to us. We will be doing more of these in the future as well, so that we can, you know, keep on sort of a continuing education perspective as well. So yeah.
I think there was one last final question that came in from Delano. What does our subscription model look like?
Yeah, so I guess I can kind of touch on this. A free trial account will give you like full access to our platform for 14 days, just to kind of evaluate how it works, what limitations you need, like what you actually need from Contentstack. So we have 3 different tiers of pricing. So I guess I can just like look those up. And the limitations are different from each one, but let's go to, where is it? Pricing comparisons. So it all depends on like the amount of users you're having and like the amount of traffic you're driving that kind of differentiate the plans. And then also the custom extensions and widgets, which we didn't really go over. They're a little more in depth. But you can see like on our pricing tier that we have users, the amount of API calls, the amount of locales, so languages, things like that. And yeah, that you can kind of look at the tier pricing here.
Sorry, if you notice us kind of giggling a little bit, it's only because Nick, the toddler marketer, just clicked on one of our paid for links on Google, costing us whatever, 25 cents or something.
It's
So
okay. Take it out of your marketing pay, Nick.
So does that put you in the red now, Nick?
Essentially.
I think it does.
All right, well, again, thank you guys very much. If there are no further questions, then I guess we are good to close down for the day. So have a great day, morning, evening, wherever you may be. Hope that everything's good for you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you all for joining us. Keep an eye out for our follow-up email. There'll be some helpful links there. Again, access to a free trial if you are interested, and also a contact us now button if you want to reach out and have more of a one-on-one session. So we hope to see you in the future. Thanks all.
Mm-hmm.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Take care.